going forward, for the other big news is, for the first time in 9 years, RCG announced an open house for vendors and members of Chamber of Commerce. Why do you think that they did that?
If I wanted to put on my arrogance hat or confidence hat, depending on how anybody watching this wants to frame it, I think that was a direct reaction to what you and I have been doing since April and May of this year, since the time of our first interview on WCTV, even to today. Their PR has been bad because they haven't done any on their own. RCG has had almost a policy of not engaging the community, not being part of. They're members of the Chambers of Commerce, but they would not show up for events for a very long time. Wouldn't show up. They didn't want to open the doors and let people come in. I mean, we had one in the whole, let's see, I left in 2021. So let's say the 6 years I was there at headquarters working as an employee. During that time when we were on the campus, they only had one it was really a private event for a garden club. And they had people come around for a tour and look at the gardens and look at the grounds. That was like the closest thing they ever did to engaging with people outside the gates of RCG and allowing folks who are not members onto the campus that weren't, serving them in some way. Sure, vendors can come on all the time because, they're doing work for them. But as far as people from the outside who are not members, who are not interested in being members, they just want to enjoy the campus, which it is a beautiful campus. It's gorgeous. The grounds are beautiful. It's excellent. I mean, anybody would love to walk around and just enjoy it. It's beautiful. But that was the only time they have done that. And so it's just ironic that the timing of my website launching, our interviews happening, articles going up, banned by HWA, publishing everything I publish, more and more people reaching out to me, people who are currently members are reaching out to me, former members are reaching out to me. And the timing of this was just very suspect. And it's like, oh, this is just damage control. They couldn't damage control enough in their own messages with the enablers at headquarters. I always put, quote, ministers getting up there and brainwashing people and telling them things to put it in a way to change the way that they look at things. Oh, and they're putting spin on this and spinning on that. When I say brainwash, I don't mean like as in like literally brainwashing, but just psychological manipulation. When that wasn't doing enough, they needed, because they monitor what's going on here at Wadsworth. They monitor the Facebook group. They're reading all my articles. They're seeing what I'm saying. They're seeing what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're posting. They had to do something to try to staunch the bleeding of their public opinion in Wadsworth. And so they, quote, had this open house inviting members of the Chamber of Commerce and vendors to have a, hey, come and see. And they were so happy. For the first time in 9 years, the Restored Church of God is opening our doors. It's like, yeah, why did it take you that long? Why are you doing it now? I wonder.
Well, guess who's members of the Chamber of Commerce? House on TV. And for multiple reasons. It is a very great organization, great for networking. We attended our first luncheon and I loved it because very informational when it came to, talking about networking and social media and things like that, because we're out there to help the people. We have several different series. So it just felt, since we've been talking with them and did a show with them, and it just felt natural to go with it. So we're members. And
Yes.
then we got an email for the open house from Restored Church of God. And I went on the Eventbrite and signed the entire team up. And clarification, we are not employees of WCTV. We have
you have a show that's hosted on it because
we have a show that they run
television
on their cable network and things like that, but we were not going as to I know that there was some confusion. People thought that we were representing WCTV. Nope, they are members of
No.
their own for the Chamber of Commerce. So we registered, I registered the entire team and I got confirmation for it. And
I did too. The same day I got my little ticket.
Yeah, you
e-bike
got
ticket.
the digital ticket for the event. Now, what do you think their reaction was? Because of course they got notification. Their reaction was, you know, the 3 weeks leading up to the event. I mean, did they reach out to you?
The open house was September, actually that was just a week ago, September 8th. We registered in middle of August with our real names. This was not a stealth incursion. This was not a we're gonna sneak in. Dawn registered my full name, her full name, and the other people that we are friends with to go with us. And I got an e-ticket, Evite, and as well as you did with the ticket. And I thought, okay, it's an automated service. Clearly, they're going to react to this once they see our names. And you and I had many discussions over the next 3 weeks about, well, what's going on? We haven't heard anything. And then we also theorized, like, well, what's going on? And I thought that there were a couple possibilities. Number one, they weren't checking the names on the list. They were just monitoring the numbers, or they weren't looking at it every day. It was kind of like, oh, it's on my to-do list and I'll do it later. And just, you know, Dr. Tim Ranney, who's the head of PR over at the Restored Church of God, you know, he was monitoring it some way. He had to be. But then the more time went on, and week after week, as we got closer to the event, I didn't hear anything. You didn't hear anything. We talked about how we were going to conduct ourselves, and being members of the Chamber of Commerce, we were representing that body. And so to go there with any ill intent, to cause a scene, to get anybody's face, to do anything unprofessional or untoward would have been horrible on our part, because we would have brought shame to the Wadsworth community. We would have brought shame to the Chamber of Commerce, and we would have tarnished our own names within the community. And that would have been awful and foolish and stupid for us. What? So we can get up in Dave Pack's face and say, why'd you buy that house? I mean, you know, go out in a blaze of glory. That doesn't serve any purpose. So our intent, and I even prefaced you with, if they call you into, because I thought for sure, Don, I thought for sure they were going to call you and not me, because I am the former member. I am the former employee. You are not. You have never been a member of the Restored Church of God. So why not contact you? You're a member of the Chamber of Commerce. You're an independent business owner. You want to go. You basically report news and facts, which is what we're doing. I mean, yes, there's a lot. It's tinted with commentary and experienced, you know, information, and looking at it from that perspective. But I know you personally. You don't have an axe to grind. You don't hate RCG. So why not reach out to you and say, excuse me, Don Blue, we want to understand why you want to come. Mark Sabrian can't come. He's a former employee. Fine. Why not contact you and just say, Don Blue, why do you want to come? What is your goal? What is your purpose? But they didn't do that. They didn't do that to me. They didn't do that to you. And so time kept going on. It's like, okay, if they ever contact you, Don, tell them, and use this quote, we'll be as harmless as doves. Because that is Bible speak for, we will not be a problem. We just want to go to observe. But time went on and time went on and time went on. And during this time, I'm curious about what you thought was going on.
I think that they were debating, because we talked about that. And yes, we talked about how we were going to conduct ourselves, you know, as a business owner, wanting to work in the community, help small businesses, the schools, things like that. To go and make a scene was not the intent. One, I was extremely curious, and still am, about the property. I mean, I see the outside of it, and you hear the stories of the inside. I mean, kind of like a botanical gardens or a Stan Hewitt, you know. I was just curious as to the property. And, you know, everybody talks about when you walk in and you see the big chandelier type thing that's not gold, but I mean, it's gold looking. I was just curious to see the property, and to,
it's gorgeous inside and out.
I knew that even if we got on the property, we'd be monitored. You know, obviously no pictures, they didn't want anything. And
I had so many photo op opportunity locations for us, Don. You
yeah,
have no idea. And I didn't
have
here.
Any point in mind of running up to somebody, even if David Pack showed his face, to say, I was just curious. I just wanted to see the property, but we were debating back and forth going, if they are really concerned, they can reach out to us, which brings to the next point. We saw them at the chamber luncheon. They had every opportunity to take to the side and say, listen, why did you sign up? What are your intentions? And I would have stated the truth. I just want
1 week before. Exactly, like that was the Wednesday before, where I didn't mean to cut you off, but Dr. Tim Ranney is on his way to the coffee, and I stand up and say hello, and we shared a smile and a handshake. It's good to see you. I thought, okay. Ed Winkfield was also there, but I didn't even make eye contact with him, not because I was avoiding him. I just didn't really see him with the way he was sitting.
Yeah.
But they had a perfect opportunity at that point to say, hey, I want to ask you a question. We noticed you're on the guest list. Why do you want to do that? And I wondered, are they incompetent? Did they not know we were on the guest list at that point? They must have known, because we're at the chamber luncheon, so we're chamber members. I thought, okay, they're either in week-long meetings where Dave C. Pack himself has to be like Caesar and give his thumbs up or thumbs down about whether or not to let Don Blue and that, the Antichrist, Mark Sabrion, onto the campus. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Or they didn't know. And if they didn't know, that's incompetence, which I really find that having a hard time to believe, because Dr. Ranney, he's a smart guy. He's a medical doctor. He's actually a very nice man and has always been very nice to me up until one point. But I was really surprised that they didn't. It's like, wow, maybe they don't know, or maybe we're in the clear and they just want to see, oh, they're bluffing, they'll never show up. I don't know. But it was odd that you bring up the luncheon where they could have had an opportunity to approach us, not confront, not to get in our face, not to create an argument, not to debate, just like, I'm really curious why you want to go. We could both sip our coffees and say, oh, we're just really curious, or whatever it would have been, but they didn't do that. They chose to be silent and not react.
Or even just give a warning, like, if you try, you would think,
please don't come.
We're reporting specific facts, and you can't give opinions to things that you don't experience or haven't been in. It's just straight up. But the thing is that they had every opportunity to talk to us and ask what our intentions were, or be professional and just call.
As a courtesy, here, we're letting you know.
But they
please don't come.
Because
I'm not going to force myself. If they say don't, I would say, well, at least I hope Don Blue can go, because she's not a former employee.
Then we even got the confirmation about it
2 days before.
Yeah. And
I thought, wow, we're still on the list.
Yeah. And I was going to be there late.
I go, this is really going to happen. We're really going.
Yeah. And it's not like I was going to show up right away. And we got the confirmation. And then, like I said, I had a prior engagement that I had to participate in. And the day of.
Oh, the day that will live in infamy for
the day
of Don Blue and
around lunch.
I was so prepared. I was so zen and chill about the whole thing, and like, oh, wow, it's really going to happen. Well, I know what I'm going to wear, and I know, I was meeting one of the guys in our party at the Giant Eagle parking lot. We'll go in together. It'll be fine, and then I get a phone call from you, but something happened right before that phone.
Well, I was a little concerned because I received double call from chamber, somebody in chamber, and they just were very polite and said, I apologize, but I spoke to Restored Church of God, and they are rescinding your invitation. They said that they notified you, and I'm just letting you know. And I was a little confused because even though I had a prior engagement, I was still checking my emails for work purposes in case, an emergency or something came up, and I never received anything. And so I was like, maybe an error happened. So I got a hold of you once I was able to go to lunch and notified you, and you looked into it and you didn't get anything. And so
nope, I reached out to the rest of our team. I've been sitting with my email open.
Yeah, we reached out to the rest of the team, and nobody from the team was emailed, Facebooked,
Notified, none,
nothing. And then
nothing,
you went ahead and made a
nothing.
phone call.
Well, after I confirmed that I didn't get an email, I went to the Eventbrite website and my digital ticket was gone. And I realized they just deleted our tickets. So the person, the very kind and thoughtful, showing brotherly love person at the Chamber of Commerce had contacted you to make sure you knew, oh, by the way, you're not invited anymore. Now, if she had not called, we would have shown up at the front gate and that would have created a scene because, wait a second, because I downloaded the PDF ticket on my phone like almost immediately.
Yeah,
because
I
I
did
wanted
too.
to have a digital copy. So I downloaded that like in August when I had the invite. So I would have gone, and I wouldn't even gone to the website, the Eventbrite website. I would have just said, here's my PDF with the little QRL code or whatever they call the little tiny square codes to get in. Oh, you're not allowed to be here. So it could have turned into a whole scene. So when I realized that my ticket was deleted, I think I texted you and said, hey, our tickets got deleted and it's off my calendar. So I picked up the phone and I called the main number of the Restored Church of God and left a voicemail for Dr. Tim Randy, who's again in charge of PR. And I had just seen him the week before. Smiley, hey, good to see you.
I know, I saw you very polite.
Everything was fine.
Yeah.
I liked the guy. I always liked him. We got along well. And, seeing him at the luncheon, I felt a little better. Like, okay, well, maybe there's a chance because other friends that, I knew, former people, were like, oh, there's no way you're getting in. There's no way they'd ever let you on. I'm like, no, so far, so good. No news is good news. So I left Dr. Randy a voicemail. And then about an hour later, he calls me back. And it was the most curt and firm tone of voice. I have never heard the man speak that way. I was getting his like dad is grounding me voice from him. And I was kind of taken aback. I was trying to be, oh, Dr. Randy, how are you? Good to see, how you, no, right to business. Mark, we're real busy. You called me and, you said there's some confusion of what's going on. Yeah, because here's how I approached it, Don. I needed to get a phone call back. I said, there's confusion about who can go and who can't go. So I need confirmation because we don't know. We were told we got an email notice, but none of us got an email notice. Can you please give verification? And I knew when I said it that way, that if he didn't respond and I said there was confusion about who could go and who could not go, we might show up anyways. Now, if you want to look at the dark side, say, oh, are you being manipulative? No, I wasn't intentionally doing that. It was just kind of like there was confusion. I have a ticket, but I'm told I can't go. I was told I got an email notification that you got an email notification and we didn't. I wanted confirmation that like what's going on. Just give me what's going on. So our whole phone call was less than 2 minutes. He basically made it very clear that they had rescinded our invite. He said an email went out and I said, no, an email did not go out. What I understood from our conversation was that Eventbrite, he assumed that we would get some kind of notification that our ticket was deleted and we were removed from the calendar, and that's not what happened. So he didn't even bother to write the email himself to say you're disinvited. It was just kind of like, well, I'm just going to let the system work it out. It's kind of like, the two Bobs dealing with Milton in the movie Office Space. They're not really going to deal with it. They're just going to kind of, oh, well, we're going to delete you, but we're not going to tell you about it and hope for the best. And I told him we didn't get a notification. He goes, well, let me be clear. You're not invited. I said, okay, can I ask why or what the concerns is? And every answer to every question I had in this very short conversation is, we're not going to talk about it today. We're not going to talk about it today. And I said, okay, Dr. Randy, if we're not going to talk about it today, when? And he says, we're not going to talk about it today. Goodbye. We're done talking, goodbye. And that was basically it. And so then I called you and let you know what he had said. And that he said, let me be clear. You're not invited. And I said, okay, fair enough. I'm not invited. Don, we're not invited. We'll let the other guys know we're not invited. So we were disinvited in a very unprofessional and I would say cowardly way by deleting our ticket and not having the decency, forget me, but letting Don Blue of How It's Done and the other 4 individuals that have nothing to do with Restored Church of God, that have nothing to do with me personally, and let them know, hey, we've deleted your invite, please don't attend. Couldn't do that. Couldn't be bothered. Too busy. Not important. Fine. I'm the wicked Antichrist. I can kind of see where I don't deserve that kind of courtesy, that professionalism, when considering I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I was invited, I got a confirmation and a ticket, and then the day of, it's just deleted. Okay, fine. But what about Don Blue? What did she do to you? Why does she not get some kind of professional respect in the community to say, we are disinviting you? You don't have to give excuses, just a one-line sentence, Dr. Tim Randy, a one-line sentence. Don Blue, due to your animosity against the Restored Church of God, we would like to tell you that you are no longer invited to the event. Period. End of story. Done. Professional, clear, not an issue. But that's not what the Restored Church of God chose to do. And I found that
I was livid. I was mad, not because
you were livid. Yes, you were.
Not because of not really being able to go, but because of how it was done. And then later on, I got even more mad because you went to Giant Eagle, right, to go grocery shopping, which happened to be their, like, I don't want to say grand opening. It was like the revival, because they moved things around and just changed it up a little. And there wasn't actually a lot of traffic there. And then I get a picture from you, which was.
So during the event, I was always planning, like, oh, I got to go to Giant Eagle, do some grocery shopping. I'll do it after the open house, because who knows how long we'll be there. And I'll just, we'll park in the Giant Eagle parking lot, walk over, whatever. So I was always planning going grocery shopping. And then when I found out from Dr. Randy that I was absolutely not going, I decided, forget that, I'm still going grocery shopping. So I drive into the Giant Eagle parking lot, and I look over, and the first thing I see is a Wadsworth police vehicle parked in front of the front gate, right behind where they had a welcome tent. So you cannot help but see a Wadsworth police officer and a vehicle parked at the front gate of the Restored Church of God, right across the street from Giant Eagle. And when I saw that, I was stunned by that. I can't believe they got a police officer for this. And it's like, wait, is that for us? Is that because we're so bad and so wicked and so crazy that we are a physical danger to the people of the Restored Church of God? Or that we would, do what? I mean, there's public property on the sidewalk right up to that front gate. I mean, legally, I could have, anybody can go up to the sidewalk where you start seeing the private property signs. So, and I know that we've had to deal with I'm now one of the kooks, but kooks and harassers, there's a certain line at which the police get involved. And so I know where it's okay to stand, but I didn't come anywhere near that. And so as I'm shopping, I'm just mentally digesting this, like, wait a second, they hired police for this event. And I go, first of all, that is so dumb beyond comparison as far as optics. Hey, look at us. We're a Christian church. Everybody thinks we're a cult. We can't get inside the gate. We don't allow you to come in and just check us out. But when we kind of have this open house for the first time ever, don't mind the armed security guard at the front gate. I thought from a PR perspective, that was just absolutely stupid. That was dumb. That was just,
I'm not laughing.
It looked so bad. It looked so bad.
Of how you're explaining it. I'm laughing because I really, like, I don't think, and I'm going to explain this as that there are people who are watching this that are just tuning in, that don't even know the area, that it is not uncommon to see a police vehicle at a function. They're hired, especially sometimes by law. I believe you have to have security, especially wedding events, alcohol, things like that. So I am not shocked at that. I saw that somebody shared information asking about the a police vehicle at the gate. So the gate's right here. We'll show you the picture. The gate's right here, and there's the vehicle.
You'll show the picture.
Yeah, and then a tent. So it's not like it was out directing traffic. Okay. And somebody mentioned, well, haven't you ever seen the police vehicle up on 94 where there's another church, Christian church, and it's rather large. They got a school there and that. And they've had a police vehicle on Sundays, which I can understand why, because it's a high traffic area with so many vehicles coming out. I don't know if they hire, I highly doubt it. I believe the city probably does it as a safety measure.
Who knows?
So, yeah, there you go. But I've never really seen in any other church that has happened. But the way that this vehicle was staged, I was kind of appalled. Because they've had events, they just had a ministry thing, didn't they? And they didn't have,
ministerial conference. They've never ever, and I was on that campus. We moved on the campus in 2015. They have never done that. They've never sold a house before, and they've never hired an armed policeman to guard the campus. And as I put in my article, I suppose when God's protection isn't enough, you can always hire the Wadsworth Police Department.
And I mean, they were just
the
doing their
Wadsworth
job.
Police Department was doing their job. I'm sure the officer conducted himself in a very professional manner, did nothing illegal. There was nothing wrong with it. This is all in the up and up. So it's not wrong for them to do it. It's just ironic and foolish from an optics perspective to be known as the cult that hired an armed guard.
Yeah, whether they were hired or they felt for their safety because of people going on the property. Either way, they were asked, and some people mentioned that maybe it was because of traffic, because of Giant Eagle stuff, and that RCG didn't want to. No, where they were, it was literally a check-in, and I personally feel that that wouldn't have been the case if we never signed up and got disinvited. I think they maybe had this feeling that I was going to be a lunatic with you and pull some ninja skills to try to get on that property. Listen, no, as soon as we were told no, we were like, okay, that's fine. I was going to go to Giant Eagle because there's certain things that I get there. But then after you showed me the picture of the armed vehicle, I was like, I don't know. I was just turned sour from the whole thing, because the fact is this was not a chamber event. This was just chamber members invited to it along with their vendors.
Right.
And
it's not an open house.
No, and to
by definition, it's
go ahead and call them, basically to call us. I was irked even more to find out that, like you said, we downloaded the tickets. And if we were not even told by somebody from there, we would have shown up on the property and had possibly an altercation with the police.
Unintentional.
Saying, well, you were told not to come here. Why are you coming here? And I was shocked, because I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
And I was enraged because they took a way out instead of just calling or leaving a message, a quick email, a text, because you have your number go with it. Nothing happened. We were not told. And it took them going to somebody else to contact us that made them, I know it made them feel uncomfortable, and they kept apologizing. And I was like,
right.
I felt bad because it made me feel like, all the work that we're trying to do, but it was just embarrassing to have not to be disinvited, but to have that situation of somebody contact us. And then we could have shown up on that property and possibly had an altercation of not us escalating it, but, whoever was at the tent going to the police going, oh, no. And
that's the guy we talked about. That's them. The officer stopped. I mean, who knows? It could have gone really poorly.
I am appalled by that.
And the police officer doesn't know the whole story.
And the reasoning that was given was that you were a disgruntled employee.
Right, but let's say I'm a disgruntled employee. I'd say I'm a little bit more than that. I'm more of an advocate now for, reporting on the goings on of Restored Church of God and the false teachings of David C. Pack. I mean, if you really want to frame it. But what about you, Don Blue? You're not a former employee. You're not a former member. Neither were the other 4 people that were in under the invite. They have nothing to do with Restored Church of God, and was going from a purely, business way of doing it.
And under clarification, that statement was made when the person from Chamber was contacted as
By Dr. Ranney
by
said,
a
told the Chamber of
reasoning.
Commerce.
And the thing is so what?
Classy.
Every time somebody holds an event that even isn't chamber, that chamber's invited, if you're a former employee disgruntled, let me be clear, that was the easy way out. Instead of saying,
Sure.
listen, there were certain things said that we're not confronting or answering to. So this is the easy way out that we're going to go ahead and do. I would like to say that to Dr. Rainey or David C. Pack or anybody else, that was extremely unprofessional to go ahead and have to use somebody else to go ahead and contact us when it could have been an extreme altercation of us showing up on the property with downloaded tickets to have a police interaction that could have been avoided if you would have just called, texted, said something. You never even asked our intentions and to think for a minute moment that we would go on your property and do something wrong. That's absurd. And you don't want to answer to the questions that the community has had. That's fine. That's up to you. But to use an excuse as a disgruntled employee and then cancel the tickets, have police show up, that looks really bad. That's not professional. So I would like to say to you, if you ever have an event again and you go to disinvite people, please be professional and don't use somebody as a scapegoat, because that was not cool. And then he had a sermon and basically, I don't know if the word boasted, talked about it and the numbers.
Yeah, before we get into what David C. Pack said, reported to the congregation about the open house that happened, I want to address the Restored Church of God and how they conducted this, specifically with Dr. Tim Ranney, who's their PR person. He's a straight up guy. Like, I don't think he's a liar. He's not a fool. He's not a coward. He's not a bad person at all. I think that maybe in wishful thinking that Eventbrite would send the email is what he was hoping, but he didn't get confirmation. He just assumed. So that was bad. The police being there, unless there was some panicked phone call at 9:30 in the morning when they finally checked the guest list and called the Wadsworth PD. Oh, do you have somebody who's here available who can come here by 3 o'clock? So we have to, it's like, or they knew it far in advance and planned it all along to have the police there because they knew they were going to disinvite us. I don't know. I'm not a fly on the wall in the room, but I would like to be. But I don't believe that Dr. Ranney intended for the lady at the Chamber of Commerce to contact and reach out and basically do his job for him. I think he would be professionally embarrassed, and he should be, to realize that that lady took it upon herself to show outgoing love and concern for others, to make sure that there was no miscommunication or that you and I would show up and it would become a scene. Like, she was looking out for us.
I know. I don't think he intended for her to call. I was so upset.
I don't think he intended for her to call. I don't think he knew she was going to do that. I think he was doing it as a courtesy to the Chamber of Commerce to let them know, hey, there's some members of yours we don't want in here because one of them is disgruntled. So therefore, by association, all of them are. So in a way, I'm defending Restored Church of God and I'm defending Dr. Tim Ranney. I don't believe he's incompetent. I don't believe he's a bad guy. And quite frankly, when he leaves the church, he and I can have a beer and discuss about how the whole thing really went down, because I do have a theory about somebody else sitting in the room with him to make sure he exuded control and strength, to make sure he was firm with me. I don't see him doing that on his own without somebody sitting there making him do it. But I don't know for sure. And Dr. Ranney, whenever you leave RCG, because Dave Pack can't get prophecy right, I will have a beer with you regardless, because, hey man, I like you. And, we got along great. And I would love to rekindle that relationship after you leave Restored Church of God and stop being an enabler and propping up Dave Pack's false teachings. So in a way, I don't think he intended things to go down the way they did, Don. They just escalated because they didn't just write an email to all of us, one sentence, officially by Restored Church of God, you're not invited. So I just want to say that. So I'm kind of defending them in a way. To be fair, you want to call me disgruntled employee, I accept that. That's fine. But poor Don Blue and the other four guys.
You were a member. like they're using the employee, but you were a member and you left the church.
I left for religious reasons, not
Not
employment.
because of
It was the best
employment.
job I ever had. Why would I quit that? I
Yes.
loved it. I loved it
So the
professionally.
clarification there for people when they hear, oh, well, he was a disgruntled employee. No. It had nothing to do with his work ethic and what he did for work. He has plenty of receipts to say that that was not the case.
Yeah.
It was he left as a member.
I'm a
because he
disgruntled
disagreed.
member would have been more accurate
Yeah.
from him, but I don't consider myself disgruntled because when you report on the facts about what David C. is saying and doing, and ironically today is September 16th, which is Elul 20, is another failed prophecy date of David C. who was pushing that this was, quote, the prophetic backstop for the 10-day kingdom. This is all getting technical. The 10-day kingdom before the Feast of Trumpets. So today is a Dave Pack failure day, one of many marked on my calendar. So it's ironic we're talking about reporting what he says, quoting him accurately. This is what he says, and then reminding people of what he just said the week before that contradict what he's saying today, especially when he gets up and does a presumption confessional. I presumed. It's like people aren't listening to that. And because I report that, and because I pull on his pigtails a little bit like a kid on the playground, I kind of tease him a little bit. I'm attacking the church and I'm an enemy of God. And so coming from their perspective that I'm an enemy of God, I'm not just a disgruntled ex-member. I'm simply reporting facts and they don't like facts.
And now he had a sermon over the weekend
yes.
and he mentioned the open house in his sermon.
Yeah, I wrote a whole article because I knew he was kind of going to talk about it. Not really sure about exactly, what he would say or what his spin was. I have a quote from him directly that I'm going to go ahead and read. This was delivered on the Saturday after in part 392. This is the exact quote talking about the open house. And keep in mind, in my article about I called it the unopen house because I proved from the dictionary that what the Restored Church of God did was a private PR event. It was not an open house. An open house invites the public and all comers are welcome. They did not invite the public. They only invited vendors, people they do business with, and the members of the Chamber of Commerce. So here's the quote that David C. used to frame just that assessment. We had an extraordinary meeting on Thursday. The Chamber of Commerce and our vendors and some who were in both came to what turned out to be a truly wonderful event. It lasted about 3 hours or so. Well attended. Probably a good 100 people came. And to say that they were impressed is the all-time, understatement, I guess I would say. So in the article that I write about, it's called Presumption Circus, if anybody wants to read it, because I get into too much detail. I basically break down how to think like David C. thinks and how to interpret his words through his own personal filter to make what he says true. He called it an extraordinary meeting on Thursday, which means somebody there read my article where I proved that what they did was not an open house. So he didn't call it an open house because they sold it as an open house. They invited it as an open house. There was a map provided that said open house. That's its own comical Disneyland story. But it was a meeting. He described it as a meeting. It's like a meeting. It's like, how is that a meeting? That's why not call it a social or whatever? So, and then he said it was well attended and probably a good 100 people came. Now, what people don't know about David C. unless you remember the Restored Church of God, is that Dave is kind of an idiot savant when it comes to numbers. Even people that don't like him today that left say that the man knows numbers. I mean, he could be exact. He knows names. He knows numbers. He knows. So when he says probably a good 100 people came, that is fudge because he knows the exact number but didn't want to say it. And so you can draw your own conclusion as to why didn't he say the exact number? Is he going to say 103 people came? Or was it 98 people came? And we're talking about now, keep in mind, the Chamber of Commerce, 1,200 plus possibilities for people from the Chamber of Commerce to come up. 1,200 plus invitations went out. So you had 1,200 plus people who were invited, not including vendors. Okay. And for probably a good 100 came. Is that well attended? Can any reasonable person go, yeah, wow, less than 10% came. That's a great turnout. I mean, I'm not a party planner, but if I invited 50 people to my wedding and 5 showed up, I'd be like, what's going on here? Maybe I shouldn't have had the crab cakes. So you have to look at that from I wouldn't have crab cakes, by the way. Probably a good 100 people is David C. Pack intentionally withheld the number because he had the exact number and chose not to tell the membership, instead wanted to paint a rosy picture. His well-attended comment is his own personal opinion, a well-attended 100 people, but he's probably the only one who would think and see that. And then the last thing I'll say about that one statement is, do people say they were impressed? I've stood in his presence when I was in RCG where he would walk up to somebody and say, "Wow, it's really impressive, right?" And what are you going to say? No. So they go, "Oh, yes, Mr. Peck, it was very impressive." And so in his mind, that person was impressed. And if you rinse and repeat that 10 times, suddenly you have a lot of people saying that they were impressed. So there's ways to read his words now and listen to him. Put on your critical thinking cap and really examine what is he saying, but also what he's not saying.
And to break it down a little bit more,
Yeah.
When you have the 100 some people, there's not saying how many of those were RCG people, employees, members,
Or vendors.
And the thing of
how many vendors showed up?
And I know in my experience, a lot of vendors usually do show up because they want to keep the business. They want to say thank you for giving us your business, and then that's not even saying, okay, so who remembers that went? That's not saying like how many businesses went, because sometimes like us, we were going to go with our team and that would have been, if everybody went, 6 people. Okay. So there's a lot of.
That's 6%. We would have been 6% more attendees for Dave Pack's event. 6%, just you, me, and our group.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective. So they lost 6% of their audience.
So 100-ish people, not knowing how many are vendors. And sometimes vendors at that time, they may have showed up in their vendor vehicle. Okay. And then you got the workers there, free or members. And then you have the chamber. Does that still justify police presence? I don't know. I mean, if they felt that they were going to create a traffic issue, because 261 is right there, I understand. Great for you wanting to have safety. That is awesome. But they weren't directing traffic. They were right at the gates. And I feel that if we would have showed up, it would have been like, why are you here? You were told.
If I were going to take the fully optimistic approach that Restored Church of God did not hire the police officer to keep, namely me, off the campus, and that's why I thought it was so disturbing. It's like, wait a second, are they trying to keep me out? Or is this like a warning for Don Blue and I go, first of all, that's insane. Now, it could be, and I'm going to throw this out there that I actually hadn't considered before. If they invite 1,200 people and 1,200 people show up at 3:00, that's a huge traffic problem. And so having a police officer there to direct traffic would have been prudent for them to do.
Because they had to have their ticket and they had confirmation for that.
That's true. We don't know how many people accepted the invite and downloaded their ticket. So again, when Dr. Ranny leaves the Restored Church of God, which I hope he does, he and his wonderful wife, they leave, we can talk about this and get all the inside baseball, do a follow-up as to what the behind the scenes. There were mixed reviews.
When I asked other members if they were going, some were excited to go because they just wanted to see the property, and others didn't want to step foot on it. I mean, it's anybody's opinion.
Right. I talked to one person who said they didn't want to go only because their presence would endorse what they do. And that person fully believed they are not a real Christian church. And so by their presence, they're saying it's okay. But that same person was terribly curious, like you were, but was taking a moral stand from their own perspective that by not supporting RCG's event, they're basically voting against them. And I kind of see that think about 1,200 possibilities to show up just from the Chamber of Commerce. and 100 people showed up. Now, if it had been more than 100 or far more than 100, whatever is reasonable, 140, 150, Dave Pack would have crowed. If there were 800 people that showed up, Dave Pack would have said 804 people showed up. He'd have the exact number. But the fact that it's all held in fog and shade, which is what the RCG way is these days, leads me to believe that maybe he was counting staff in his own mind, like even people on, on staff who were working, as, guides and security and whatever on the campus. Was he including that 100? I don't know. Let's just remove all headquarters staff from the 100 and let's just call it an even 100. How many of those are vendors? They have many dozens of vendors for different ways: construction guys, gardening guys, plumbers, electricians, anything you can think of that a business would need on a campus that size. How many of them? We won't know. Dr. Randy knows, and he could tell me someday, but we don't know. And we will never know because Dave Pack doesn't want anybody to know.
Now, you were provided with something from that event, and you found something I found it very interesting what you discovered.
Yeah, so after my article went live that weekend, somebody had received a hard copy version of the map of the open house, the Restore Church of God open house. And the first thing that you notice when you open it, I mean, it's kind of, when I say Disneyland earlier, it's like Disneyland in scale. It's not meant to be like for architects where that street is exactly, it's to let people know where the highlights of the campus are, what to go visit. And from my understanding, people were allowed to, quote, roam around, but every roaming group had somebody designated with them. So nobody was unattended wandering the campus. So don't think of it as you get in the door and you get to walk free. Yes, but, oh, well, let me, a member from Restore Church of God, let me come and help you. Let me show you around. Let me do this and that. So keep that in mind. And, oh, I want to go see this building and I want to go see that building and I want to see this. What was missing from the map that I found interesting was, number one, all the houses in the middle of the campus. There was just the smallest cul-de-sac looking street you could possibly see. It looked like an ankh. It was so tiny. No houses, because they don't want to say, hey, look, this is where Dave Pack lives. Come and take a picture in front of Dave Pack's house. Now, whether people tried to walk that street or not, I don't know. Whether they were thwarted or just like, hey, that's private property. You don't want to go over there. That's private residence. Is out of respect. Let's not do that. I don't know how that was done. I would assume that, and that's kind of reasonable. It is a personal neighborhood. It is a private neighborhood. So I can understand them wanting to do that, but not having it on the map, and then also not having the horses that are housed on the $1.1 million property where the barn and the other house is also interesting. And you and I were talking about the reason for why not include the horses. And I thought, well, maybe visually it doesn't look good on a map because it would be more like, a panhandle, where at the top left of the map, and you'll have this in your video so people can see it. Imagine instead of the map being a big square, the top left quarter would have this long stretch of land, which is where the horses are. Now, whether people could go see the horses or not, I don't know again. But if they don't see it on the map and they don't know, they wouldn't know to go there. Oh, that's just a big empty field. Oh, I'd rather look at the lake and these little cabins and that kind of thing. So those are two things that were left off the map.
And the big fence.
What fence are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. What fence?
The big wooden eyesore fence.
Oh, nobody wants to walk along the freeway to see that. There is I want to say 0.4. I mean, I measured this in my car driving past on the highway right there. There's a giant fence that's along the highway, a wooden fence that was put up last winter that didn't used to be there. Because a windstorm took down some of the sound baffles and silk screens that were up there, silk or just fabric screens that were used so that Dave wouldn't have to see the freeway and the freeway couldn't see him from his backyard. So they built a fence that's about a wooden fence that's about a half a mile long along the highway. Nobody wants to see that. I actually forgot about the fence, so thank you for reminding me. But
I drive
of course
by
that wouldn't be on the
like,
tour.
Yeah, they could at least painted it or something,
I'm not a construction guy. Maybe they're letting the wood season before they paint it. I don't know. I would assume it's treated wood, but I also
It's
would
very
love to know the
seasoned.
cost of that going in, but I'm not the RCG auditor as financials are concerned. I can only base what I report public records. That's where I get my information. I don't have an insider who, slipping me emails about certain private things. And even then, if that happened, I already hold back on information that I hear from certain people because I don't want to identify them. And I also don't want to, let anybody think that who writes to me that I'm going to blurt out what they write to me or call me about. So I try to be judicious about what information goes out. And I certainly ask permission before I divulge information from all parties. And in fact, some people this past weekend, I was going to write somebody into an article as part of a story. And I asked them, is that okay? And they said, please don't. And so I just left it all out. Didn't even mention it. So I'm happy to do that. I'm not here to make anybody uncomfortable, except for David C. Pack, who's a prophetic fraud and a biblical fraud. I don't mind making him feel uncomfortable because what he's doing is horrific. And so, but my intent is not to make anybody feel uncomfortable. I'm not doing it out of malice. I don't hate anybody. I don't want anybody to die. I'm not trying to bring RCG down. It's just when stuff is goofy and funny, like this map, and it's like the first impression, I go, oh, it's a Disneyland map. I'm going to poke fun at it, but also point out the facts. There are no horses, there's no ranch, and no houses. Interesting.
Now, all this information is on your website.
Yes. exrcg.org is the website I started in June to post all my articles, to keep people updated. When a member services posting like went out last night where Dave Pack was trying to explain away how it could possibly be tonight at sunset or maybe the Sabbath. And basically he's continually walking back what he just taught, forgetting what he just said and how strongly he said it. And I just simply report that. And so if people are interested, they can go to exrcg.org. I also have a Facebook group that has notifications. X Restored website. I think I had to keep names differently just because of the way that Facebook won't let you have so many acronyms. So I kind of had to do it that way. But yeah, the audience is getting bigger. I'm having more and more people who leave, or people that I used to know, people I never knew. I got an email this morning from somebody who said, I just resigned. And, what do you think? I'm trying to be a hub of information specifically about the Restored Church of God, which is how I'm different from the Banned by HWA website. They're all churches of God that are splintered off from the Worldwide Church of God under Herbert W. Armstrong. I focus on the Restored Church of God, and the only reason I care about the Restored Church of God and the teachings of David C. Pack was because I gave them 9 years of my life. I was a member from 2012 to 2021. I was a headquarters staff member. So I met people, I knew people, I had experience, and there's people that I still care about that are there. There's a lot of really wonderful people still in the Restored Church of God. They don't know what to do. They're confused. It doesn't make sense. I know that the mechanism for, I guess you could say, coping is to not even listen to Dave Pack messages. Some members inside the Restored Church of God don't even listen to the Dave Pack messages. And I would love, love, love to get the numbers from website services when a video is posted, how many people actually watch it and how many people actually download it. Because the only way people can just say, I can deal with this is by ignoring it. And by ignoring the problem, they're able to cope and try to read their Bible and study and pray and fast and hope that Jesus gets here and cross their fingers that maybe Dave Pack one day will be right. The problem is he'll never be right.
Now, we'll report back when we, have more info.
There'll always be more info.
Yeah, and to clarify what Mark said, there has been people in the community or former members that are like, why not just move on? Why report on this? There's plenty of other churches. Why is this church so important? There's other cogs. Because we can only report on facts that we have and people that are talking. I can't just go to another church and just be like, oh my gosh, did you hear? No, we have to have facts. We have people that are willing to come and talk about it. And particularly, why does it matter? Because, and yes, it is people's choices to hand over their money. It is people's choices to stay there. But when you are ran by an authoritarian leader who basically scares you of the outside world if you leave the church and what's going to happen to you, and then, you know, gives a plea asking for financial funds that has to go towards another property, but doesn't tell you, that's disturbing. And also in the fact of, you know, what does it matter what they do with their money? It doesn't. I mean, really, it doesn't affect me, but personally, I know that it's affecting other people because they're being duped as to where their money is going. And if it is true that, you know, those who are paying rent aren't paying the full amount, you know, because obviously they can't afford it and the church has to bite the bullet on the rest, then those are members who are suffering until, you know, one of his predictions comes true, that they're all funding all this great glory of a land. And that's not right. You know, and he preaches certain things that are racist, as in, you know, I know everybody has their mixed opinions, but personally, I feel, and talk to others that have talked about the British Israelism, you know, just in regards to things like that. And so that's why we do not report on other things, and only this one. So when we have more information, you know, we'll of course get it to you, bring it to you. If you have anything that you need to talk to Mark about, again, his information is on his website. There's also a Facebook page that he has. Besides what we have to go ahead and give, he writes a lot of articles. They're in depth. He gives the facts and the proof behind that,
with a little snark from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, and to those that are from other cogs, we're only reporting on what we have here. It's not like we're picking and choosing to go after churches. A church is allowed to do as they please, but when you take advantage of members and give a date and then purchase a property that I mean, if you were housing homeless people or things like that, I could see that, but that's money that's not going back into the community to help. That money is not going to help the members that need it, because obviously they're not rich. They're giving over all their money. So
it was all about the lawn. I refer to it as the $500,000 lawn, because that's what's important to Dave Pack, a pretty lawn. That's why he bought the house, period.
So if you are a former member or a current member leaving, you have experience and we'd like to do an interview, please feel free to reach out. We have ways to make sure that if you do not want your face shown, we can go ahead and do that. We can make arrangements to where your voice isn't shown. We're just trying to get out the facts. We're trying to help other former members. Mark is part of an extraordinary group of former members, basically a support group, I guess you could kind of put it, because, you know, people are like, well, it was their choice, it's their problem. You have to realize, though, that basically the majority of people that leave these types of churches or any organization that has, you know, I guess you could say psychological issues going on, being afraid to leave, and most of these people spending their lives with these groups, to leave, it's hard. It's like asking a domestic violence victim, why didn't you just walk out the door? You weren't in their position, you weren't in their situation, you don't know. Some people deal with it in different ways. Some people shut the door, you know, some people go ahead and seek help. It just really depends. So I would really reach out to Mark. He has a lot of resources. If you're looking to talk to specific people, look for resources to help heal. And we thank you guys for participating in this series, and we know we'll get constructive criticism, but that's fine. Again,
hey, John, one more thing.
Yes.
To let all the folks inside the Restored Church of God, you're not alone. Not everyone is an antichrist who wants to murder you. Think for yourself, listen to what Dave Pack says, read your Bible and believe it. The answers are there right in front of you. You're not alone. You know, reach out, ask questions, ask your minister questions. And when you get trouble or in trouble or talk to them, talking to from them because you're asking about a Bible concept, ask yourself, is this the church I joined years ago? Is this the same spirit driving the church? So I appreciate the members of Wadsworth community, and my heart goes out still to the members of the Restored Church of God. There are people that's trapped in there because they don't know what else to do or where to go. I don't know where to go. I just know that Restored is not the right place.
Yeah, and there are not, I know that maybe some former members or current members, they see things on social media, this keyboard warriors, but in all honesty, there's nobody out there against you. There's nobody that's going to harm you, and nobody is out there to get in your face and judge you. If you feel that there's something wrong, you have the right to reach out and speak to people. And please, by all means, if you don't realize how many people have trickled out of the woodworks to contact Mark, Dennis, other people, just know that you're not alone. And they are very good about confidentiality. So until we have more information, until next time, thank you for watching.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.